Welcome to the Love Local Chicagoland Podcast. Here we invite people and nonprofits from our local communities to share their stories and their voices. Through amplifying their message, we share their genuine human experiences that connect us all. Our goal is to make our communities more than just a place to live, but instead a place to thrive. Tune in to hear what makes our community so special right here on the Love Local Chicagoland Podcast. What's going on, friends? Welcome to another episode of Love Local Chicagoland Podcast, where our goal is to be able to connect you to good people doing good things in our community that want to be able to help with their expertise and their knowledge to be able to help make our communities a better place to be able to live. Today, my friends, we have a good friend here. He is a pastor at a local church, Prince of Peace Lutheran Church in Palatine, Illinois. He is also an author that wrote the book, How Are You Doing? Relational discipleship for the everyday person. We're going to dive deep today with Matt, a little bit about the book, but we're going to dive deep into mental health. Mental health is super important for us as we sit here at this table, and both of us have our own struggles with mental health and have overcome it. So we're going to get real in hopes of being able to show vulnerability, to show that you out there could put in that work, and by putting in that work and by working on yourself, you could live a more joyous life. So enough of me talking. I'm going to introduce my good friend, Matt Koenig. How you doing, man?
Good, buddy. How are you?
Doing good. It's so nice to have you here in the studio today to be able to chat.
Yeah, I've never been in a studio, and this is quite awesome, to say the least. So I'm super excited to be here.
It's an honor for you to be able to be here, man. I've gotten to know you probably over the last 5 to 7, 8 years or so.
Yeah, I've been here 7 years. So
pretty cool, man. And you become a really good friend
awesome.
in that time frame. So excited to talk today about mental health. We'll touch base a little bit about your book. But before we dive into that, I want our audience to know who is Matt Koenig and what should people know?
Well, that's a long, we only have like an hour, right? So basically the things about me, you already said, I'm a pastor of a Lutheran church in Palatine, Illinois. I'm married. I have 2 kids. My lovely wife, Dawn, is principal of a Lutheran school in Mount Prospect. My 2 children one is a teacher now, and one is studying to be a teacher. So that's my family. I've struggled, and you talked about mental illness, so I'll just kind of dive right into that a little bit. Mental illness has been part of my life for, let's see, I'm 51, so the better part of probably 40, 45 years of just dealing with stuff like that. So to kind of set that up, that's who I am in a nutshell. Other things, I love to be outdoors, I love to exercise, I love to run, and I'm a big fan of, Batman, as you can definitely tell.
Those that know that you love your Batman.
Oh, yeah,
right?
very much so.
And you're about to go on a hunting trip, actually.
Yes, I am.
Deer season as we sit here and record the podcast.
Yes, I'm leaving from here to pack, then leave tomorrow. So, excited about that.
It's a beautiful thing. I'm looking forward to this, man. I think talking to you and growing in friendship with you, your vulnerability and your realness around mental health has helped me as a person. And I think it's, in past generations and even in our current generation, mental health is not something that people want to talk about. And it's that I got to be tough. It's many things, but I got to be tough. I got to push through. I got to persevere. But in reality, there's coping mechanisms. There's coping mechanisms that we could work with, and we could understand ourselves more, and in turn live more of a joyous life while we're here on earth. So I appreciate the vulnerability kind of from day one. And I appreciate you being here today just to talk through it. Our goal with this show is really to talk. No, small talk isn't here. It's real talk on how can we help each other as neighbors and as community members live better lives. And a lot of people are struggling out there with mental health, and some people have went and gotten help, and some people are still on that journey and they haven't gotten there. So we were talking kind of to prep for this podcast. We dove into that a little bit. Like mental health isn't something to be quiet about anymore. And it was the exact words that came out of your mouth. When we say that, why isn't it something that we need to keep quiet with anymore?
Well, I don't know for all of your listeners. I know for myself, I grew up in the 70s, 80s, 90s, and a lot of time there was a lot of comments that would push through that and push around that. Grow some thicker skin, you'll be okay. Rub some dirt on it, you'll be fine. Buck up, buttercup. All of those kinds of things. And basically, what those were is suck it up, man up, and do put your big boy pants on and just power through. And I think so many people pre-pandemic, but even more so post-pandemic, are really dealing with a lot of mental health stuff, whether it's depression, anxiety, or just soundtracks in your mind. John Acuff's book Soundtracks talks about that, about the playlist that keeps going on in your mind, about the things that are negative that go on in your head. And I think we got to stop being so loud about, or so quiet about it, because quite frankly, everybody at some point in their life is dealing with some sort of diagnosable mental illness. It is proven fact. And at any given time, 1 out of 5 people in your context of friends are struggling with mental illness.
Yeah, it's a real thing, and especially as we evolve as humans, right? Like, how fast our brains go now because of this thing. Who knows what it's doing to us? I'm sure we'll learn about that later in life. But mental health is, and mental illness is there. And one of the things that when thinking about mental health, I go back to, like, you got to be that tough man. You got to be that toughness. And you look at our society now, and people are like, masculinity is going away and all this sort of stuff, which that's another talk for another day, but let's go there.
Yeah.
Because when we talk about our feelings, or we talk about our emotions, or we talk what's going in our heads, if you're could let that come out, and if you could go through that, if you could put in that work, to me, somebody that is still struggling with mental health today, but is on this journey, it's courageous. And because it's not, it's hard to, like, show a sign of weakness, right? But at the end of the day, we're all just trying to do the best we can,
right?
And the world is tough. Doing life is tough. And then you add on top of that, if you have a family, if you have parents that are sick, if you have all these other things, it just adds to this compound effect of, like, life's hard, guys.
Yeah.
So to be able to work through that, and just to be able to be real about things, like, why are we hiding it anymore? Let's just be good humans to each other and help uplift the people that are struggling, because to your point, we're all struggling.
We're all struggling
and have in some way. What thing that you mentioned to me was, it's it kind of in that context, was about, like, about a doctor. Like, if you're sick, if you have a cold, you go to the doctor.
You go to the doctor.
You break a bone, you go to the doctor. Right? But mental health, you tough up, you sit down and you go through it. Right? But that doesn't seem right, right?
No, and it's absolutely not right. I mean, I'm part of the generation that hates going to the doctor.
I'm with you.
And I mean, no offense to the doctor profession or medical profession. I don't know what it is, but we just have that. I just have that gene of, I don't want to go to the doctor. But I think with mental health, what we see is several different things. We see the word shrink. And that's been a derogatory term that's been used for counseling for years. And really what a counselor is somebody to talk to. Somebody just sit down and help you process information. That's why that to me, that's super, super important about going to a doctor. For myself, when I hit my lowest point, I went to my counselor, I went to my family practitioner, and I went to a psychiatrist, all within 1 week. And I had to get something straightened out. I mean, if you're sick, you go to a doctor. If your car's acting up, you take it to a mechanic or you fix it yourself. I'm not an auto mechanic. I can't do that. I take mine to a guy I know. If your mind's not working right, you got to take it somewhere so that it gets fixed. It's just like any other muscle or part of your body.
Yeah, definitely. So good job on just going in and putting that work in. Like, you went right at it then.
Oh,
you
yeah.
went out to every doctor. You're
Oh,
like, I'm going to get help. I'm going to be able to get some support. What led you to that point?
Well, it was a multi-year process, and there was a lot of things that hit me. So this started back probably in 2017, 2018. If you don't mind taking me a little time to get through the
Do
story.
it, man. Yeah.
I think it was 2018. I'm an early morning gym guy, and I was driving to the gym, and I was driving in Palatine, and I can remember looking over and seeing a fast food restaurant that was open. And I can remember thoughts going through my mind repetitively as I was driving of, if I turned right and drove right into that concrete wall and I would die, I think that would be the best thing that could happen for me.
Ooh.
And when I started thinking that, and I had no real notion, I had been dealing with some depression stuff, but nothing like that. And all of a sudden I was like, okay, I got to start dealing with this in the right way. And so I went to my family doctor. We talked a lot about it. And she actually used the line, I don't think you're suicidal because you love your family and your job and you love your Lord. I said, well, yeah, but I still shouldn't have those thoughts. So they put me on some medications. Come the pandemic, which everybody remembers and probably everybody hated, I was stuck inside a house as an extrovert with 3 people who were tired of talking to me and giving me hugs because I had to talk at all times and in all ways. And all of a sudden, I could feel myself getting more and more and more and more down. And as I was going down, 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 deeper and deeper and deeper, when I finally got out of the pandemic and finally got into a normal way of life, I could no longer function in a positive way. I saw the world as black, not black and white, just black. Everything was dreary. Come to this winter of 22, spring of 21, somewhere around in that time frame, I had just published my book, and I was coming back into this high of, I just published a book. Wow, this is awesome. And all of a sudden, it was like I fell off a cliff. And I went from I'm high to I wish I were dead. And really and truly, I actually came home from preaching one weekend. My wife asked how church went, and I said, I wish I weren't here. And I looked her square in the eye and I said, and I don't mean in this house or in Palatine. And I knew right away there was something immensely wrong with me. And so I made a couple of phone calls on that Monday. I started dealing with things. And then as I'm dealing with it, my emotions every 15 minutes are starting to change. So I'm going from I'm high, I want to laugh, to 5 minutes later, I'm just wanting to curl up my ball and cry. And then I'm angry and I just couldn't control. And so that's
Were
when
you still on the medication at that time
I
that they
was,
gave you?
I was on sertraline, what that's called, and it's an
Familiar. Yeah.
antidepressant.
Mhm.
And so that's when I made 3 phone calls, and I was in a meeting with our senior pastor, Carl Fay, and Carrie Stollard, whom you know very well.
I do. Yes.
And I said, guys, I've got to make 3 or 4 phone calls. And they go, what's going on? And I told them what was happening. I'm like, I have to deal with this now because I couldn't function. I was having trouble even just putting pen to paper to write anything. I would come into the office and literally sit there for 2 hours staring at my computer, and I couldn't do a darn thing.
Mhm.
And so finally, I met with all of them. They got me squared away on a drug called bupropion, which, if you've ever heard of, is a leveling drug that balances your dopamine, basically. And once I got on that, and once I kept with my counseling and being on the sertraline, uh, Carl, Carrie, my wife, those are the 3 people I'm probably closest to, said, you've changed. And that was the point where I was like, okay, life is starting to get better now. But there were dark times where I wish I were dead. I mean, to be quite honest with you, thank God I never attempted suicide, but was well on my way to thinking about it.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you went and got that help, man.
So am I.
more reasons than you know. And thanks for just being real and being able to share your story.
Well, and that's part of the reason why I don't want people to think that it's something that we have to hide from anymore.
Yeah,
we got to be real about it, because if we're not real about it, it doesn't exist.
yeah. I've struggled with mental health as well. I was on that search lane for honestly up until COVID, and they were mixing it with something else that messed with me. So if you looked at the beginning of COVID and what I would say that year in general, I was at low places in my life as well. And a part of it was that medicine should have never been together. It was just the doctor's error or whatever you want to call it. But I should have got more help from a psychologist. I should have worked through some systems. There should have been more of a treatment program. So I went into COVID time in a really bad spot. And I remember it was April 21st where like, I'm done with this stuff, which I do not recommend just stopping that stuff. And they tell you not to do that, but I had to be able to do that because I needed to get back to my true self. And I didn't know even what that was at that time because those medicines together played with my brain. So I could understand when you're saying that those feelings are, it's this because it's our brains are wired a certain way, and if something's off in them, it takes us sometimes on this journey. But I remember at that time, and I don't remember if you felt it too, but to me, I had so much shame and thinking about mental health and thinking about working through that sort of stuff that I wasn't good enough. When in all reality, it was just going through a really tough time, and maybe the medicines that I had shouldn't have been together. But people go through those types of feelings. It's why maybe they don't go to the doctor. So what would you say to somebody that it feels like they should go to the doctor and to be able to get help, but maybe is feeling some shame or some disappointment, or it maybe has that tough man syndrome of like, I'm going to fight through this, but in all reality, they're not healthy?
Well, I think something that I would say to that person, quite frankly, is, and again, I go back to the whole, if you're sick, you go to the doctor, and they don't call it mental handicap. They don't call it mental problem. They call it mental illness for a reason, because you can treat it. And just because you want to man up, the more you try to push through it, the worse it gets. And the more it'll bring you down to the point where I was. I spent 30 years ignoring it and just thinking, I just got to toughen up a bit. I'd go to counselors here and there, and I'd, fart around with that kind of stuff. But I never really took it seriously until finally I was like, yeah, this is an issue I got to deal with. And so same thing for anybody else. If you're feeling shame about having to go to a counselor,
disappointment,
maybe, I don't know what the word to use is, but let me give it to you straight. And I'm not trying to be sexist or masculine or anything like that. And if you want to cut this out, that's fine. But I've been told I'm the guy's guy. I played college football. I watch football on Sundays. I do woodworking. I go hunting. I do all the guy stuff. And I had to come to grips with the fact that I ain't perfect, and I couldn't do it on my own. And so that was where I was like, yeah, if I got to do this, I got to do this.
Yeah. That whole man's man thing, like, I'm all about going fishing, hunting, and all that sort of stuff. When we're talking about mental health, for one, if we're learning from past generations, we've learned so much as a society, and our doctors have learned so much more on how to be able to cure and treat. I would say more than cure. I would say treat. Treat this disease that comes in many different facets. So I think my hope is that we could grow out of this as a society to think that this is a manly thing, and masculinity is being lost from our society, all the other stupid stuff that's out there. That's not the case. You're going hunting and you're going to kill a deer this week.
Hope. I'm feeding my family, folks. That's what I'm doing.
But it's you're still a man. And it might, I go back to that piece of it. It's even more of a man, because you could have people out in society, you could have, and this is for other people that are out there as well, you could have people think that that's a sign of weakness to be able to go through it. But to be like, I want to be better for my family. I want to be better for my wife. I want to be a better father. I want to be better for my church and for the congregation. And I'm going to go get help. there ain't nothing more manly than that,
Right.
in my opinion. My hope is that people that are going through stuff are able to work through it, to go find help, to go
Mhm.
maybe go to a church, to go to some type of counseling, to be
Right.
able to get support and to be able to get help.
Well, and I think it's interesting you talked about, the shame and all of that. You know what comes from depression if you don't deal with it at an early stage? What comes with it is more shame and more weakness, because
Numbs you.
through that depression, lots of people turn to drinking, pornography, all of those kinds of things. I mean, those are certain things that I turn to try to find that dopamine hit to make myself feel better. And I, to be very honest, and I've said it in a message, I drank way too much. I got way too into the internet. We'll leave it at that. And I had to finally figure out what was going on. I had to finally be better for my wife, my kids, my church,
Yeah,
my friends, my coworkers, everybody.
for sure. That dopamine hit is real, man.
Oh,
You
it's
know,
huge.
going through stuff, and we're leaving it all out on the table, guys. What you're hearing is what you're hearing. But I've recently come to the fact, whether it's alcohol or marijuana for me, I'm really good at numbing myself, and
Oh, yeah.
I have been good at numbing myself since I could remember. And I thought that, oh, it's not alcohol anymore, it's marijuana. But I could tell you what, it still numbed me.
Oh, yeah.
And I could be functional. I could do things people that wouldn't even know that I was on the marijuana. But it helped during that time.
Right.
But now, as I reflect back on that time, and as I go into the therapy piece even deeper, what I realized is I was just hiding from something.
Right.
It's hiding from something that I didn't want to deal with. And then I had to look inside. I'm like, oh man, I got to fix something.
Right.
I got to, and like, that sucks. It's a little bit of punch to the gut, but you know what sucks even worse? Numbing your feelings your whole life and not experiencing the joy that this life could give when you look back on it.
Yep.
During our conversation, we were talking about like this right here and going through it. But we both came to a point of like, once you find and get through this whatever that is for you, the amount of joy that you have.
Oh, yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that part of your journey, like coming out of this and then being at peace, finding joy in your life? Yeah.
So one of the big things that I found in my journey was as I was healing, I was also finding joy in what I was doing. I've been in ministry for 28 plus years, and I've been doing ministry all over the Midwest. Part of that was from my mental health of wanting to run away. But once I finally started getting a grip on that, I started finding the joy in actually doing the job that I had, and I started loving it. But I also found joy. I found more joy in my exercise. I found more joy in being outside. I found more joy in my kids. I found more joy in my wife. Quite frankly, I found more joy in cleaning up after my dog. And that sounds terrible, but it truly is. I just found a happy place that I can be in. And I rediscovered a passion of mine through this. I rediscovered woodworking. I love doing it now, and I smile when I'm in my shop, and I just find a joy in everything now because my mind is not fighting the negative attitudes, the negative thoughts, the negative everything. I'm just dealing with life as it comes, and it's great.
For sure. Would you when you're at the tough times, to backtrack a second, something you said this triggered that something when I asked this question, like cyclical thinking. Would you think that was a part of what you went through? Yeah.
Oh yeah. I call it spiraling. Your brain keeps talking about you or saying things about you, and you keep going down. One of the things that I dealt with in grade school, high school, and even further in life is obesity. When I was a kid, I was known as Fat Matt. And
which is crazy to think about, because since I known you, I've seen you at the gym. Even when you were struggling, you're at the gym.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, and that's part of that, unfortunately, is when I was a freshman in college, everybody gains the freshman 15, I lost the freshman 80. I lost 80 pounds my freshman year of college, and I did it in 6 months.
Wow.
And I got so skinny and so little that I couldn't do anything anymore. But the things that I'm hearing or what I would hear from that is continually spiraling in my mind. So anytime I'm a diabetic now, so I don't eat much candy, but anytime I would eat carbs now, my mind starts telling me how overweight I am and how
Mm,
incredibly obese I am. And so I really have to walk my mind through this spiraling of terribleness. Evaluations are the same way, or used to be the same way. Uh, I would I would spin out of control. I'm going to be evaluated. My mind would start saying, "Oh, you're terrible. Oh, you suck. Oh, they're going to hate you. They're going to tell you everything that you do wrong. You're so bad. You're so bad. You're so bad." And as you can see it, it doesn't go from just you were wrong. It goes to you're bad, you suck, you shouldn't be doing this. Oh my gosh, you shouldn't be here. Oh, it'd be better if you were gone. It happens that quickly.
yeah.
And your mind just takes over and runs it. I mean, to get a little technical, it's called your neural pathways of thought. It's the ruts your brain creates that you just go into and you travel in and you can't get out of until you just redo them.
Yeah. That cyclical thinking is
Oh
dangerous.
yeah.
And if you're not aware of it, it could stay with you for long periods of time, which takes away from joy.
Oh yeah.
Because
Oh yeah.
I've experienced a lot of cyclical thinking. It sounds like you have too. When you're in cyclical thinking, you're experiencing a lot of things, and one of them is not joy.
No. No.
And yeah, so we look at this, and now we're both followers of Jesus, right?
Mhm. Very much so.
Jesus is. We talk about grace. We
Mhm.
talk about love.
Mhm.
There's none of that in that
No.
cyclical
No.
thinking at all. But it's about allowing yourself that
Right.
grace, and usually, like for me, I look at that cyclical thinking. It was an insecurity within me
Mhm.
that whether I didn't see it myself or whether I wanted to pretend that it wasn't there, it was one of those things. But once I learned that, like, grace is key, and
Mhm.
it starts with yourself.
Mhm.
Definitely for other people, because we're all human, we're all just doing the best we can. But when you allow it for yourself,
Mhm.
it's a game changer. You're gonna say something?
Well, I was
Yeah.
gonna say, I mean, it's interesting you say that because, I mean, you said I'm a pastor. That's what I preach every week. Now now you wanna hear the real hard-hitting one is I could preach that every week, but I didn't believe it. Not that I didn't believe in Jesus and he was my savior, but I believed that
It's
I
real,
was
man.
so bad that he wasn't necessarily. I had to be better and I had to earn that, and
Mhm.
that's not what grace is.
Mhm.
And, I could tell you that, but I had trouble hearing it
For
myself.
sure.
And that was a real eye opener for me. And that actually led
It
me to
is.
the joy of, yeah, I screwed up. Okay, let's keep going.
Yeah.
All right, I learned from it. Great.
Yeah. I mean, shoot, man, I wear happy t-shirts all the time, and I'll say it to other people, but when it comes to doing it to yourself,
Oh yeah.
allowing yourself grace, and depending on what those thoughts are that drive that cyclical thinking, right? Some of those are really deep embedded in us
Right.
that we don't even know we're there. So we just beat ourselves down because that's the easiest thing to do.
Mhm.
And you know what? Who doesn't like a good pity party?
Right.
Well, you know what? I've been through many pity parties, and they suck.
Oh
At
yeah.
the end of the day, they
Mhm.
suck, because usually the people that are around you are the ones that have to take that, like,
Mhm.
brunt of it.
Yep.
You mentioned Carrie earlier. She's taking the brunt of it.
Mhm.
My kids saw a little bit of that cyclical thinking. My parents did. My other family members did, and it wasn't any other thing. It was grace, love for them, but it was because of how I was treating myself, that I
Mhm.
wasn't taking my own dang advice, or
Yep.
the advice that I got from a
Right.
sermon over the weekend.
Right.
You talked, when we were talking through this piece, you said, when we allow ourselves to be ourselves, our whole world changes.
Yes.
Um, what do you mean by that?
Well, so when we allow ourselves to be ourselves, and one of the things you have to do through mental illness is, quite frankly, figure out who you are, because a lot of what we're going through, and this is from a book by Nona Jones called Killing Comparison. And in her book, she talks about how in a Facebook society, in a social media society, we are a people who try to keep up with the Joneses even more so than when I was a kid. And so, you have your neighbor who's posting this beautiful picture of their house that was just redone, or all of this. And so what we're doing is not only is our inner critic commenting on us, but we're also trying to keep up with everybody else around us. And because of that, we put so much more pressure on ourselves to be something that we are not.
Yeah.
And so, like, for me, I was trying to be just like the senior pastor in our church. Well, I'm nothing like him. I mean, I literally am nothing like him. He's tall, I'm short. I mean, he's bald, I still have hair. I mean, there's a whole lot of stuff there. But I was so trying to be that I forgot to just be Matt.
Yeah.
And wow, that rhymed. That was kind of cool. And because of that, I had to rediscover who I was and be okay with who I am. Because once you find out who you are, and once you find out your whole inner being and what you are so, you have that inner confidence of, that's not me, so I don't need to do that.
Yeah.
Or that's not me,
And be content with
and be content with it. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it took me a while to figure out. I'm 51. It took me a while to figure out that I wasn't going to play in the NBA. I'm 5'8" and I can't jump. Okay. That right there means I'm not going to play in the NBA. It took me a long time to figure out I wasn't going to play in the NFL. I'm 5'8" and I can't run very fast anymore. I mean, all of those things I had to come to grips with. Some people do that at an early age. Some people don't.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it was, what am I going to be and who am I?
Yeah.
And that once I found that out, everything just kind of fell into place.
Totally.
Really.
Yeah, no, it's beautiful, man. And I've had some of that experience myself. I remember being in corporate America, I'd be miserable at what I was doing. And I learned later in life that I am an introverted soul, but I was trying to compete with the extroverts. And I was trying to do the things that they were doing. Well, all the time while doing that, I was draining myself, because my energy comes from peace. My energy comes from solitude. My energy comes from sitting on the couch with a cup of coffee in the morning. It doesn't come from managing tons and tons of people and having a lot of people come at you. But at the time, I was numbing myself. So it was like this coping mechanism of like, oh, this takes a while to be able to go through. But so people that are listening to this, like, if you're not feeling right, if you're not experience joy, like, go to that root. And you maybe have to put in some work. And you know what? Maybe it won't happen tomorrow, but if you are acknowledge that you are there, you'll be on that journey to self-discovery.
Right.
You'll be on that journey to, like, I don't need to be like, my pastor, Senior Carl. He brings his own skill sets. God gave him, his unique abilities within. But guess who else he gave unique abilities to? You and to me and to everybody else.
Exactly.
He gives somebody a gift. Whether we go out and get that gift or not and put in that work is up to each of us as individuals.
Right.
But he does give us that gift. Some of us maybe just don't want to take that jump, right? To be able to go after it.
Well, and it's like building muscle.
Yeah.
I'm an analogy person. You know me to know that, but I think it's like building muscle. Sometimes you tear down muscle in order to build it up bigger and stronger and better. And in the same way, we have to sometimes tear down those things that we think we are, so that we can come back stronger and better and bigger and just more awesome as we go forward. So, yeah.
Yeah. When you find your true self, when you get to that point, and that is a different journey for everybody.
Absolutely.
The joy that comes from that, from building something in your shop, because that's Matt. Matt is a carpenter at heart, right?
I just finished a new gaming table. It's going to be awesome.
I got a couple cutting boards from you just one recently. But what other books have been influential on this journey of self-discovery and growth for you?
So there were 4 of them. I've mentioned 2 already. Nona Jones' Killing Comparison. There was John Acuff's Soundtracks. The biggest one that had the biggest influence on me, though, was Winning the War in Your Mind by Craig Groeschel. He's pastor of Live Church in Oklahoma. Actually, when I was at my lowest, that was a book that just happened to fall into my lap. And I bought it via Audible. I listened to it. And I not only bought it on Audible, I then bought it on Kindle and read it. And like literally read it. And to give you a little bit of an idea of the guy, I reached out to him via Instagram and just said, "Hey, thank you. Your book really did save my life." And he sent me an autographed copy of "Keep Going, You're Doing Awesome." And he found me. I didn't tell him who I was other than my name. And I was a pastor in such and such a community, and he found me. So that meant the world to me. And then the other one was a Jenny Allen book. And I can't think of the name of it off the top of my head, but Jenny Allen has a book about spiral thinking. It's like being okay with who you are, but it's that getting rid of spiral thinking. And it was written for women, but to be honest with you, the more I listen to it, the more I'm like, oh yeah, yep, I resonate, I resonate, I resonate, I resonate. And those were really the 4 books that really, really changed my perspective on a lot of stuff. And I've just kind of kept going with them as well.
Yeah, so you're struggling. You're in a bad spot.
Oh yeah.
You're a pastor of a church leading people
Mhm.
through probably similar things
Yep.
that they're going through. But you're always continuing to learn and to grow.
Right.
So I think that's a
Mhm.
common theme in here.
Mhm.
Like you didn't back down. You didn't.
No.
You figured out what type of work you had to put in. You had to be able to put in that work, and you gave. Even though it was not easy, and you had days where there was no grace
Oh yeah.
around, from what I'm hearing you
Oh
say,
yeah.
you work through it through
Mhm.
grace to
Mhm.
be able to come out on the other
Right.
side, to be able to uh, live a peaceful life that's full of joy.
Right.
So I'm proud of you. I think
Thank you. And you.
first and most, it's a journey, dude.
It is.
It's a journey, and I think that's why I want people to talk about it. It's like we
Mhm.
all struggle, and if you're not, or if you say you never have, you're lying.
Yep.
So let's just get real.
Yep.
Right?
Let's
Because
get real.
that's part of being a human is
Mhm.
is struggling. So
Mhm.
if we could all just be real with ourselves, guess what we could also do?
Right.
We could uplift each other. We could
Exactly.
be like, man, I've
Mhm.
been there, and I'm
Mhm.
sorry you're there right now.
Yep.
And what's going on? And you could
Mhm.
be a friend, and you could listen.
Right.
And through that listening could offer more questions.
Mhm.
Our good friend Carl, best advice he ever gave me would be is to be curious.
Yep.
So to be curious and to help people lift up so they can experience joy,
Right.
so that they can be
Mhm.
happy, because life's short.
Yep.
Life's really short.
Yep.
So to live it in cyclical thinking, and to live it where you're not living your best life and you're not experiencing joy, is a waste of time.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely.
You mentioned 4 points. If somebody was going through or they're struggling, and
Mhm.
you have like a 4-point system
Right.
that you work around, can you talk to me about that 4-point system to be able to give people I want to say hope, but also a process
Right.
to be able to work through when they're in their minds in the gutter?
Right.
Yep.
This came out of I teach since I started my path to healing, I've started a class, a Bible study at our church on mental health, and it's a 4-week class, and this is kind of morphed out of that. So that's where this kind of comes from, and it's called the AWAY principle. And so I use the first letters of AWAY to kind of give us the idea of what it is. And it's so the first A is analyze. You analyze what you're in. So it's analyze, work, align, and then yourself. Um, and what it means is you analyze the situation that you're in. You talk through it. You I encourage people to actually take themselves out of the situation or take themselves out of the negative thought and put somebody else in it. How would they see that person? How would they react to that person? And that gives them the opportunity to analyze it and see it for what it really is, not for what their mind thinks it is.
For sure.
And then you
Almost forces you to have grace, because you're like, oh, I wouldn't beat that person up as much as I'm beating myself up right now, right? I
right,
think
exactly. Yeah, exactly. And not only give yourself grace, but also give yourself a chance to sit back and say, wow, this ain't this ain't what I'm thinking it is. So not only grace, but
Hmm.
actually see the reality of what's going on. Our mind loves to play the tricks on us to make us see it one way when really it's an actual another way, because that's how our brain works. Next is you put in the work. And what I mean by work is you just start the process not only of analyzing it, but you also start putting in the work of redefining your ruts, your neural pathways, which we talked about earlier, redefining those to turn them to where they need to go. A lot of us have thoughts many times that take us down a negative trail. Um, for years, and I haven't told this story, but I was told I was one of my teachers in grade school, and if she listens to the podcast, I don't want her to know who she is. Told my mom I was stupid, and I heard it, and so since I was in that grade, I have thought I was stupid, and that has been a rut forever. And I mean, I have 2 undergrad degrees and a master's degree, uh, and I have I don't know, a 3.3 GPA or something, from college. That's not to brag. That's just to say I'm not stupid, but my mind went that direction.
Sure.
And so now I had to put in the work to turn that, to make that real.
In certain ages, those things stick with you
Oh, yeah.
forever.
Mhm.
And whether you know it or not, or whether it's in a subconscious somewhere, that sticks with you,
Right.
right? Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that's where you put the work in. That's
Yeah.
where you realign yourself. Well, and then you realign. And lots of us have minds that go in separate many directions, and we think many different things like, oh, I have to be good at this. Oh, I have to be good at this. Oh, I have to do this. I have to be good at this. When in actuality, what we need to do is align our thoughts to who and what we really are. And once we pull those things in to the straight line that it's supposed to be, our mind works so much better because it's so much clearer. Knowing that, then aligning those thoughts, putting those arrows in the same direction. And for me, like we said, I'm a pastor. I believe in grace alone by Christ. That was one of my alignment arrows that I had to go through. One of my other alignment arrows is I'm not dumb. And that's what I need to remember and remind myself. Other aligning arrows are things that whoever you are, you need to know and understand. So you get your brain going in the right direction, which is basically, I mean, even love one another. We were talking about building each other up. That's scriptural. Love one another, and that's part of it. And then you finish with yourself. Once you've gone through those 3 steps, then you know who you are. And you need to not only know yourself, but accept yourself. You know, know that you're not going to be able to do those things. No, you're not going to be able to do this. I'm 5'8". I have to have my oldest daughter, who's almost 6 foot tall, reach the things on the top shelf. I'm okay with that. And it's going to be funny, and I'm going to laugh about it, and she's going to laugh about it. But that's okay, because I know who I am. I know my limitations. I know my strengths. I know my weaknesses. I know my personality. And most importantly, I know and have accepted myself for who I am and who God made me to be. And then I'm okay with the other stuff that I'm not good at. And I can give that to somebody else. Or I can say, oh, I have to improve on that. And then I go down that same negative path again. Accept yourself for who you are. God made you special and unique in your own way. Be that unique person that God has made you to be. Accept it and love it, because you are you for a very specific reason. And I don't know what that is. I know what it is for you. I know what it is for me. And that's it. I mean, that's all the principles takes, but it takes a long time to start it and get through it, until you've kind of worked through it, and until I'll use the word master it, but at least become competent in it. It comes quicker. Each time you
Totally.
use it,
I
it
could see
becomes
that.
quicker and
Yeah.
quicker and quicker and quicker, until you're not even thinking about it anymore.
Yeah. And the end result is you're living a more content life.
Exactly.
That brings joy.
Mhm.
When you live a content life that brings joy, usually your ability to be able to bring out the best in others, with whatever your profession is,
Right.
is there, right?
Yep.
And we can enjoy this life that, here on earth, right?
Yep, absolutely.
During our conversation, we were kind of climbing. We're experiencing joy, but there's times when you go back to just those types of thinkings, which you kind of touch base on there, and that good principle to be able to come back. But you said, after you get through it, don't let your struggle hold you back from your possibilities. What do you mean by that?
Well, lots of times people in their struggles aren't able to move forward in life. They aren't able to conquer anything. They aren't able to do much of anything else. And because of that, their past loves to pull back on them. Their past loves to bring them back to that negative place. And one of the phrases I use is, our past defines us, but it doesn't hold on to us. So our past has made us who we are, but because of that, we can then go forward and do some amazing things. For instance, I mean, you brought up the book. Once I started healing, I was able to get out of my own head and write a book.
Beautiful.
Once I got out of my own head, my exercise routine improved. I got stronger and lost some weight, and am able to push myself harder and better. I have more energy. My past isn't holding me back, and I'm not saying, oh, I can't do that because of this. I'm saying, why can't I do that? Why can't I, write another book? Why can't I stand up for myself? Why can't I be the person I am going to be? Why can't I stand up and say, no, that's not the right thing, instead of just shying away and saying, oh, that person may not like me. And then I go through my negative ruts of everybody hates me, and just say, I don't think you're right in that. And that was part of me being able to take my past and say, yep, that defined who I was for a time, but it does not define who I am now. And I love I use it often, but in the movie The Lion King, there's a place where Simba is talking to Rafiki, and it's this beautiful thought and interaction, and Rafiki hits Simba on the head, and Simba goes, ow, that hurt. And he goes, why'd you do that? And Rafiki says, it doesn't matter, it's in the past. And he goes, you can either hurt from it, and he takes his staff and he swings it, and Simba ducks, and he goes, or you can learn from it. And that has always spoke to me as our past we learn from, but it doesn't define us. It doesn't tell us who we are today. And I think that's where this is so important. That's where our past doesn't bring us to a place of negativity anymore, because we've escaped it. And we can do so much more when you've escaped that's holding you back.
Yeah.
It's hard to run a marathon when you're tied to a truck, right? It's hard to swim a mile when you're tied to a tire that sinks. It's hard to do those things. So let's cut the rope and let's go.
Yeah, cut the rope and let's go, man.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful way to be able to say it. So, writing your book, did
Yeah.
you want to write when did you know you wanted to write a book? Did you know this would be a part of your healing process, or is that something you wanted to do way back in the day that just accidentally worked into being this healing mechanism for you as you work through it?
So when I had my first job, I was a teacher, and I can remember when I left that job, it was a very bad situation. And I remember when I left that job, I flat out knew, to prove somebody wrong, I wanted to write a book so that I could prove that I was smart enough to write a book. And that had always been in the back of my head. But the process of getting to write this book actually became something completely different. It became something of, I always wanted to do it, but I also wanted to be able to kind of step up and share some of the knowledge that I had accumulated over my life with people in a way that I think would hopefully affect and help the church. And so that's where this all came from. It's part of my healing process, but it's also part of my, quite frankly, let's not only move forward, but let's help things happen the way they should happen.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's beautiful. I love the title of it. I read through it as well in preparation for this conversation, but also maybe as a part of my healing process. And I think reading and learning for me helps me get out of my head.
Good.
So I love that you wrote it. I want you to tell people a little bit about what it is. It's called How You Doing? Kind of see it here, cool, like right there. How you doing? Can you talk to us a little bit about what it is?
Yeah, so the title actually came from, I'm a huge Friends fan, and so that's Joey Tribbiani's line is, how you doing? Yep. And when I had it originally, that was the title, and then they said I needed to really change it because it was way too icky and pickup liney, and so I put an R in it. So that's how I got the title.
That's funny. Right.
But the book is basically about relational discipleship. As a pastor, I'm tired of seeing the church falter and fail. I'm tired of churches saying we have this new program that's going to expand our church and grow and do all these things. And God can do anything in any way he wants. But the fact of the matter is, program is not discipleship. Relationships is discipleship.
Yes.
It's sitting down with somebody over a cup of coffee, a beer, a scotch, watching the football game, whatever it is, and just sitting down and having a conversation with them. And through that conversation, somebody will learn who you are, you'll learn who they are, and they get to know more about you. It comes really from the experiences that I had at the gym, where I spend quite a bit of time, and the interactions that I've had there. In fact, if you read the book, which you have, you'll notice most of my stories are from the gym.
From the gym.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome, man. And I think your why within this is powerful, and I think that pulls into like just follow your heart and like lean into it. If God put something in your heart, He wants you to go after it. Does not mean it's going to be easy.
Right.
In fact,
Right.
in many cases, it's not, because puts it in your heart, but the things you have to learn along the way are part of that journey,
Exactly.
a part of that story, which in all reality, you could directly point back to Him,
Right.
and being able to help guide you through this. Where can people find this book?
So you can find it on Amazon. You can buy it at Barnes and Noble or Zulon Press, their shop. If you want direct link to all of those, you can go to my website, pastormattkoenig.com, and there's links to where you can purchase it there.
Okay, cool. One thing I think this would be really informational for people to know. We talked about the 4 C's in here, which to me help paint a picture and put it all together. Can you talk about the 4 C's?
Yeah. So the 4 C's of discipleship, and you can look at this as discipleship. You can look at this as just making friends. It's connect, care, community, Christ. And what it's basically saying is you need to connect with people, and to do that for the spreading of the gospel for others. It's quite frankly just getting out of the church and finding a place to be where there are other people that aren't connected to the church. Too many times we think that discipleship happens. You sit in a pew and you come to a dinner and then you go home, and hopefully that'll make more Christians. In fact, I had a guy once tell me that all we have to do is open the doors of the church and people will come in because that's the job of the Holy Spirit. And I don't think so. I think that's the job of the Holy Spirit, but I don't think that's how it works anymore. And so
there's a lot there. And,
oh yeah,
and people, there's a trust factor. We don't. This is another podcast. Let's be clear with it. But there's good churches and bad churches out there, right? We're humans. We mess things up really good.
Yep.
That's why it's good to point back to this or to the Bible, and to be able to learn and to be able to grow in it. Because as humans, we struggle and we're hot messes.
Right.
But that, how are you doing that relationship feel, the community? I've been a part of Prince of Peace for, now since I think 2011, and the community I've seen evolve and grow to where it is now, where I am proud to be a member of the church, because it's a community of people that want to know how you're doing.
Right.
And they want to help you be the best you.
Right.
And I find that truly, truly beautiful. So people go to Amazon, they can get the book, go to a website to be able to get the book. If they want to connect with you, Matt, where do they do that at?
You can connect with me at pastormattkoenig@gmail.com, or again, you can go to my website and reach out to me through that, pastormattkoenig.com.
Cool.
Yep.
Well, Matt, it's been a pleasure having this conversation today. I hope this is first of many as we continue on this journey that we call life. My friends, life's hard. Let's stop pretending that it's not. We all have a gift inside of us. It's important for us to be able to work through what we need to be able to work through, to be able to go after that gift. It won't be easy. In fact, I'm going to tell you that it's probably going to be a struggle, but lean into that. Find yourself a community, find friends, go places, and just ask people how you're doing. Be curious as you do that. And I promise you that, and maybe some help with some doctors along the way, you could live an abundant life that is full of joy, which I don't know about you. The earth is like 4 billion years old. We're here for 80 to 100 of it. We should be experiencing joy while we're down here, my friends. Thank you again, Matt. And
absolutely.
Peace out, my friends. Till next time. Peace.